Next question.
Major Caldwell, CIOG 6. I just have a quick question. There's been a lot of talking in the news about affirmative action, and I guess 10, 15 years from now, what do you think the future of affirmative action will be?
Affirmative action, I think, was a necessary program because there had been so many years of disparity. There was no way that, the opportunities would have opened, I believe, without affirmative action. And I know that that's something that there's a lot of debate on. Richard Nixon, I believe in 72 or maybe 71, part of that Civil Rights Act said that employment was illegal. Richard Nixon signed an executive order that actually mandated federal agencies to go out to federal contractors and make sure that they were instituting affirmative action. There were instances in colleges and universities in the United States, and when we talk about it, it wasn't that, I don't think it was that long ago because I can remember it. Maybe when I get in my 80s or my 90s, I'll say, oh, it was a real long time ago. But there were colleges and universities that actually made us put pictures on applications so that we would be eliminated from consideration. That was the mindset in so many different places. Affirmative action may have come to a point where the concept itself over the years started taking on, I think, a negative connotation because other people started feeling like they were being excluded to the benefit of African Americans. I think that there's a conscientious effort to still bring more diversity in, and that's something that corporations and colleges and everyone has to understand. If you don't have diversity, that you're lacking. The word itself, maybe 15 years from now, may not still be in place, but for the near future, I think that there has to be more sensitivity and understanding that diversity is what makes it work. And I think that they should also answer that question.
Carl? Well, affirmative action. I agree, of course, with everything the ambassador said. And I think I couldn't tell you where that tipping point is, where the opportunities for one set of Americans usurps the opportunities for other set of Americans in a negative way. We may be very close to that, and if we are, we need to examine it because affirmative action, as the ambassador said, it was necessary, and it was the right thing to do at that time. I don't know if we're to the point now to where we don't need it anymore. Maybe we are, maybe we're not. We can have that discussion as a nation. But it was necessary, it was good, it helped to overcome the lack of opportunities for minorities. But never, I think, would any minority want it to get to the point where you cross the line. And now the opportunities for one set of Americans is usurping the opportunities for another. So I think that discussion should be had as to whether we've reached that point to where we can do something a little different. But I certainly agree that it was necessary and it was a good thing.
And I agree with my panel. Affirmative action was one tool to try to correct the wrongs of the past, but it's not the only tool. And speaking for myself, I don't want any kind of unfair advantage. The only thing I or any other minority wants is just an opportunity and a chance. That's what we should focus on. The business world figured this out a long time ago. If you want to sell your product to diverse groups of people, you better make sure that your company looks like the rest of the nation. And that's how we start to create an expanded opportunity for everybody in this country. But just focus on the opportunity. If you do that, then there probably wouldn't be any need for affirmative action in that way.
Affirmative action.
Oh, yeah.
Well, affirmative action was put into place to ensure that minorities had an equal opportunity to get the same jobs and the same positions and the same promotions as the rest of society or the people they were competing. It wanted to level the playing field so that, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, the content of your character was the main thing being evaluated as opposed to the color of your skin, what religion, and that sort of thing.
So the problem came about for certain segments because the program was if you have a company, and in that company there were no people of color, African American, Hispanic, no people of color. Everyone in that company was white. So what that CEO or that company president would do is sit down and come up with a plan, and he would say, I need to put X amount. So they would set a goal on how many they thought should come into the company. And so it was called an affirmative action goal or an objective. So with that in place, then they would start programs to recruit people to meet that number. And it had two impacts. First, to meet that number, on occasion, other people were upset because they thought opportunities were then given to minorities or African Americans who weren't qualified because you were just trying to reach a number. But also, if you reach that number, and then there's still people who are African American who could also benefit your company or be an asset to your company, if you reach that number, that means that you had stopped. So there were all kinds of issues coming about from affirmative action. And it happened in schools because certain schools didn't have certain law schools. As I said, if you put your picture on an application and they see your picture and say, well, no, you can't come here. And, it was a matter of how we were thinking, or some people were thinking in the United States at that time. I believe we've matured immensely as a country. And I'm sure that you all see that as younger people, too.
We have time for one more question. Yes, ma'am.
As an educator and as a reading specialist, I was wondering if you could comment on the value of not only education, but of literacy and reading for our students.
Oh, my daughter, when I took my daughter all over the world with me, took her to the Galapagos, Sweden. My mom was there, my son, my daughter. And my daughter always leaned toward children. When I left Africa, she asked if she could stay a couple of weeks so that she could finish the summer camp where she was working with the kids. So I had to get a Peace Corps person to bring her from Niamey through London and meet her at the airport in Baltimore because I was already back to work at the State Department. And when she went to college, she said to me, I'm going to teach. I'm going to be a teacher. I probably shouldn't tell this, but she said, I'm going to be a teacher. And I looked at my mom and I said, I took her all over the world. What is she talking? She's going to be a teacher. And my mother said, you shut your mouth. If it wasn't for your teacher, you wouldn't even know how to read. My daughter is now principal. She was made a principal last year in the Baltimore City school system. And it's so important. What do you do if you can't read? Plus, I enjoy reading. I mean, it's one of those things that, in addition to developing yourselves personally, what do you do if you can't read? I mean, it's just a fundamental for all of us, I would think, in the U.S. And it's so important that when we see that there's a pocket somewhere and children aren't learning to read, that we find some way to tap that. Even if we have to come out of, I think, the public system to a Sylvan Learning Center or something, find a way to get those groups in. Because reading is just, I don't know how you make it not being able to read. Not only in the U.S., but anywhere. And I think my international students would agree to me, even if you're in another language, you have to be able to read and understand it and contribute to the thought and critical thinking. Because even when you read it, so many bloggers now and so many people out there writing everything. You have to be careful. You have to read it, understand it, and you can even weigh in and say what you think about it. That's what reading does. It broadens. So, no, and in the State Department, we have a program where we go to the urban schools weekly to read, and when I was there, I would participate in that. So it works out. You all?
Well, I would just like to say that students, please believe me when I tell you, teachers are extremely important, not only to you as young people trying to gain knowledge and to us as old people who have already received some of that knowledge, but for society as a whole, I personally believe a society cannot be a great society without great teachers. They teach us to read, they teach us to think, they teach us to experience the world around us and the wonder of learning. Teachers are very important. Education is very important. And a lot of my opportunities that I've had personally, I can directly correlate to education, to some teacher taking me aside and saying, young man, you need to do your homework, and if you don't know how to do it, I'm going to spend a few minutes after class and show you how to do it. And that meant so much. At the time, my lip was my lip was poked out, and I didn't understand it, but here I am, 50 years later, and I understand that the value of that is just priceless. You can't put a price on it. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to continue your education. Lifelong learning, critical thinking, as the ambassador said, are so important for a country and especially for its people. So please, laud your educators. A wonderful, wonderful thing.
It's not just about reading, it's about communicating. And by sharpening your reading skills, you'll be able to better communicate. You'll be able to explain complex ideas, not only to each other, but also to future bosses. That's what I do in my job in the Capitol. Part of my job is explaining to my boss complex policy issues. And I would not be able to do that if it weren't for my reading teachers and my English teachers, all of whom I remember throughout my career. And I'm very grateful for the tools that they gave me that allowed me to succeed.
All right, thanks to our panel members for your enlightening thoughts on civil rights. Please give them a round of applause. We will now transition to the awards ceremony. If each of the panel members will move forward and Brigadier General Eggert come forward, we will recognize each of the students from area schools. This year's essay contest was open to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders across the Carlisle School District. The focus of the essays was on civil rights leaders in America. We will now recognize the winners from each school. Each student will receive a certificate of achievement signed by Brigadier General Eggert and a $25 Visa gift card from the Army War College Foundation and Alumni Affairs. Mechanicsburg Middle School, 6th grade, Lillian Police, Dr. Martin Luther King. Seventh grade, Susanna Gaither, essay on Harriet Tubman. Eighth grade, Reagan Werner, essay on Frederick Douglass. From Yellow Breeches Middle School, 6th grade, Victor Capozzi, essay on Salem Poor. Seventh grade, Liza Capozzi, essay on Harriet Tubman. Eighth grade, Asia Wittenberger, essay on Rosa Parks. Good Hope Middle School, 6th grade, Sophia Rothman, essay on Jackie Robinson. Eighth grade, Anna Tartline, essay on Daisy Myers. Eagle View Middle School, 7th grade, Riley Noga, essay on Rosa Parks. Lamberton Middle School, 6th grade, Ansley Morton, essay on Bessie Coleman. Seventh grade, Olea Sofan, essay on Harriet Tubman. Eighth grade, Claire Nyberg, essay on Rosa Parks. St. Patrick's School, 6th grade, Adler Brenninger, essay on Frederick Douglass. Seventh grade, Bailey O'Donnell, essay on Frederick Douglass, Rosa Parks, and Martin Luther King. Eighth grade, Jack Butcher, essay on Earl Lloyd.
Does anybody wonder why he wrote about the NBA?
Wilson Middle School, 6th grade, Annalise DeYoung, essay on Rosa Parks. Seventh grade, Brianna Murray, essay on Linda Brown. Eighth grade, Hyatt Abdallah, essay on Dr. Martin Luther King. Please give all our awardees a round of applause. Stand by, stand by. I would like to thank a number of schools and organizations for assisting with this ceremony. First, the principals and leadership of the area schools that participated in the essay contest, the Department of Technology Integration at CSLD, the Army War College Foundation and Alumni Affairs, the EEO Office, Public Affairs Office, Metro Productions, and Outreach Services. Without the support of each school and organization, this observance would not have been possible. Please join us for ethnic food sampling and photos and follow-up discussion in Bliss Hall Atrium. At this time, I'd like all the awardees to move forward for a photo with Brigadier General Eggert and the panel members. Thank you all for attending.